The 52nd floor of Hamilton Corp's Manhattan headquarters always felt different at dawn. Elena Kim preferred arriving before the rush, when the morning light painted long shadows across the empty corridors, and the only sound was the gentle hum of computers coming to life. At 28, she had mastered the art of being invisible while being indispensable, a skill that had served her well throughout her career. This morning, like every other, she settled into her routine with practiced precision. Her desktop came alive with a soft whir as she arranged her morning coffee and notebook, each item finding its designated spot on her meticulously organized desk. The skyline beyond her window was beginning to sparkle with sunlight, the kind of view that made even the most cynical New Yorkers pause for a moment. "Another early start, Elena?" The voice startled her, deep, controlled, and unmistakable. Nathan Turner wasn't known for arriving this early, yet there he stood in his immaculate charcoal suit, his presence commanding attention without effort. As president of Hamilton Corp, he rarely ventured to this part of the floor, preferring to remain in his corner office where decisions that shaped the company's future were made daily. "Mr. Turner?" Elena acknowledged, rising from her chair. "Yes, I find the morning quiet helpful for reviewing the quarterly projections." His eyes lingered on her desk, taking in the careful arrangement of documents. "The Anderson merger analysis, you completed it already?" "Last night. I noticed some discrepancies in their financial statements that needed attention." She reached for the folder, her movements deliberate and calm, despite the unexpected interaction. "Would you like to review it now?" A slight curve touched his lips, not quite a smile, but an expression that suggested approval. "Bring it to my office in an hour, and Elena?" He paused, his gaze direct. "The executive board meeting this afternoon. I want you there." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of his cologne and a flutter of uncertainty in her chest. Executive board meetings were sacred ground at Hamilton Corp, reserved for the highest echelons of management. Junior analysts like her didn't get invited without reason. The morning progressed with its usual efficiency, but Elena's mind kept returning to that brief interaction. Nathan Turner was known for his calculating nature, his ability to see 10 steps ahead in any business situation. In the 3 years she'd worked at Hamilton Corp, she'd watched him transform the company from a traditional tech giant into an innovative powerhouse. He was brilliant, ruthless when necessary, and completely dedicated to the company's success. She had never expected him to notice her work, let alone her presence. By afternoon, the office was alive with its usual symphony of keyboard clicks, phone calls, and hurried conversations. Elena made her way to the executive boardroom, her tablet clutched perhaps a bit too tightly against her chest. The room itself was intimidating. All glass and steel with views of Manhattan that made you feel like you were floating above the city. "Ms. Kim," Robert Turner's voice cut through her thoughts as she entered. The former president of Hamilton Corp and Nathan's father still maintained an active role on the board. His presence alone could make seasoned executives nervous. "I wasn't aware junior staff would be joining us today." "Elena will be presenting the Anderson merger analysis," Nathan interjected before she could speak, his tone leaving no room for discussion. Her insights proved valuable. The next hour passed, in a blur of presentations and questions. Elena felt Nathan's gaze on her several times as she explained her findings, but she kept her focus on the facts, on the numbers that never lied. When she revealed the potential risks she'd uncovered in the merger, the room fell into a contemplative silence. "This could have cost us millions," Robert Turner finally said, his expression unreadable. "Nathan, we need to reconsider our approach." "Already done," Nathan replied, standing. Elena's report outlined several alternative strategies. "We'll be implementing the third option, effective immediately." He turned to her, and for a moment, their eyes met. "Good work." The meeting dispersed, but as Elena gathered her materials, she felt the weight of unspoken words in the air. Nathan lingered by the door, his presence making her movements less sure, less practiced. "The Chicago Tech Conference next month," he said suddenly. "I need someone who can see what others miss. You'll be accompanying me." It wasn't a question. Elena felt her carefully constructed world shift slightly on its axis. Of course, Mr. Turner. As she walked back to her desk, the city lights beginning to twinkle in the early evening darkness, Elena realized that her days of being invisible were numbered. She had caught Nathan Turner's attention, and something told her that nothing would be the same after this. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a flutter of anticipation in her chest, a feeling she couldn't quite name. As she packed up her things for the day, she caught her reflection in the window, a young woman on the cusp of something unexpected, something that could either elevate her career or complicate it beyond measure. Little did she know Nathan. Turner stood in his office watching the city lights flicker to life, thinking about the quiet intensity in her eyes when she presented her findings. For the first time in years, he had seen something different, someone different. And like every good businessman, he recognized an opportunity when he saw one. The question was, what kind of opportunity was this? The next 2 weeks at Hamilton Corp passed in a blur of preparation. Elena found herself caught in a delicate dance of maintaining her usual responsibilities while preparing for the Chicago Tech Conference. Each day brought new challenges, new moments where she felt Nathan Turner's presence more acutely than ever before. The conference schedule needs revision, Nathan announced one evening, appearing at her desk just as the office had begun to empty. The setting sun cast long shadows across his features, softening his usually sharp expression. "Join me in my office." Elena followed him, noting how different the executive floor felt after hours. Their footsteps echoed in the vacant space, and through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan's lights twinkled like earthbound stars. Nathan's office, unlike the sterile corporate environment outside, held subtle touches of personality. A vintage chess set on a side table, a collection of rare first-edition business books, a photograph of a younger Nathan with his father at what appeared to be a company milestone celebration. 3 days in Chicago, Nathan said, spreading the conference materials across his desk. "We need to maximize every hour." He loosened his tie slightly, a rare gesture that suggested their working relationship had evolved beyond mere formality. "I've already analyzed the speaker lineup," Elena replied, pulling up her notes on her tablet. "There are several key presentations we shouldn't miss, particularly the panel on artificial intelligence ethics. It aligns perfectly with Hamilton Corp's new development direction." Nathan looked up, a glimmer of something like appreciation in his eyes. "You've done your homework." "Always." The word slipped out with more confidence than she intended, and for a moment their eyes met. The air seemed to thicken with unspoken thoughts. Nathan cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "What about the evening events?" "There's a networking dinner the first night, followed by—" Elena paused, double-checking her notes. "A corporate gala the second evening. The final night is open for private meetings or business dinners." "Good. We'll need to be strategic about who we talk to." Nathan moved around his desk, closing the distance between them slightly. "The Anderson merger might be dead, but there are other opportunities we need to explore." Elena nodded, trying to focus on the schedule in front of her rather than his proximity. The faint scent of his cologne, subtle but distinctly masculine, made it harder to maintain her professional composure. "Mr. Turner," a new voice interrupted. Robert Turner stood in the doorway, his expression clouding as he took in the scene before him. "Working late, I see." "Conference preparation," Nathan replied smoothly, stepping back to create more distance between himself and Elena. "Elena's been instrumental in organizing our schedule." Robert's eyes narrowed slightly. "Indeed. Though I wonder if sending a junior analyst to such a high-profile event is wise." Elena felt her chest tighten, but before she could respond, Nathan spoke. "Elena's proven herself more than capable. Or have you forgotten how her analysis saved us from a catastrophic merger?" The tension between father and son crackled in the air. Robert Turner's lips pressed into a thin line. "Just remember, Nathan, this conference isn't about delegating tasks. It's about maintaining relationships with our most important partners. I'm well aware of what's at stake. Nathan's voice carried an edge of steel. Elena will continue this tomorrow, 9 a.m. Recognizing the dismissal, Elena gathered her materials and left, feeling Robert Turner's disapproving gaze follow her out. As she waited for the elevator, she heard raised voices from Nathan's office. Father and son engaged in what seemed like a heated discussion. The following days brought a flurry of activity. Elena found herself in frequent meetings with Nathan, planning every detail of their Chicago trip. Each interaction seemed to carry more weight than the last, charged with an energy she couldn't quite define. "Your presentation skills are solid," Nathan commented during one of their preparation sessions. "But in Chicago, you'll need to be more than solid. These people can smell hesitation like sharks smell blood." "I don't hesitate, Mr. Turner," Elena responded, meeting his gaze directly. "Not when I know I'm right." A smile, genuine this time, tugged at his lips. "No, you don't. That's precisely why you're coming with me." The day before their departure, Elena was reviewing their final arrangements when Madison Chen, her closest friend in the office, perched on the edge of her desk. "So," Madison whispered, glancing around conspiratorially. 3 days in Chicago with Nathan Turner. Half the office is buzzing about it." Elena felt her stomach clench. "It's strictly professional." "Honey, nothing with Nathan Turner is strictly anything. Have you seen the way he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching?" "Madison, I'm just saying, be careful." Madison's expression turned serious. "Not because of him, necessarily. But this company, it has a way of turning everything into politics, and you're walking into the lion's den." Elena wanted to dismiss her friend's concerns, but she couldn't shake the memory of Robert Turner's disapproving stare. The politics at Hamilton Corp were as complex as any government's, and she was suddenly very aware of her precarious position. That evening, as she packed her suitcase, Elena caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked composed, professional, everything she had worked so hard to be. But beneath that carefully constructed exterior, something was shifting, like tectonic plates moving imperceptibly beneath the Earth's surface. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Car will pick you up at 7 a.m. NT. Such a simple message, yet her heart quickened at those initials. She was walking into something that felt bigger than herself, bigger than a mere business trip. The question was she ready for whatever lay ahead? In his penthouse across town, Nathan Turner stood at his window, watching the city pulse with life below. On his desk lay Elena's personnel file, her impressive academic record, her steady rise through the company ranks, her flawless performance reviews. But what interested him most wasn't on paper. It was the quiet fire he saw in her eyes when she stood her ground, the brilliant mind that caught details others missed, the grace with which she handled his father's thinly veiled disapproval. He told himself this was about business, about maximizing the company's presence at the conference. But as he poured himself a glass of scotch, he couldn't deny the anticipation building in his chest. 3 days in Chicago. 3 days away from the watchful eyes of Hamilton Corp and 3 days with Elena Kim. The thought should have worried him. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of something exhilarating, something that could either be his biggest mistake or the best decision he'd ever made. Tomorrow would tell. Chicago greeted them with a crisp autumn morning, the kind that made the city's steel and glass towers gleam like diamonds. Elena watched the skyline grow larger through the window of their private car, acutely aware of Nathan's presence beside her. They hadn't spoken much during the flight. He'd been absorbed in work emails while she reviewed conference materials, but the silence between them felt charged with possibility. The peninsula Chicago rose before them, its elegant facade a testament to luxury. As they stepped into the marble-floored lobby, Elena noticed Nathan watching her reaction to the opulent surroundings. She maintained her composed expression, though inside her heart raced at the grandeur of it all. "Ms. Kim, Mr. Turner," the concierge approached with practiced grace. "Your suites are ready. We've placed you both on the executive floor, as requested. Elena's eyes widened slightly at the word suites, but she shouldn't have been surprised. Nathan Turner didn't do anything halfway. The first keynote starts in 2 hours, Nathan said as they entered the elevator. That gives us time to settle in and review our strategy. He pressed the button for the top floor, standing close enough that Elena could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Their suites were across the hall from each other, close enough for convenience, far enough for propriety. Elena's room took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Michigan Avenue, while the interior spoke of understated luxury. She had just finished unpacking when a knock came at her door. Nathan stood there, his suit jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The casual appearance made him look younger, more approachable. "Ready to review the game plan?" he asked, holding up a leather portfolio. They settled in the sitting area of her suite, spreading documents across the coffee table. Elena tried to focus on the conference schedule, but she couldn't help noticing how different Nathan seemed away from the office. His posture was more relaxed, his expressions less guarded. "The keynote speaker is Dr. Reeves," Elena noted, pulling up her research. "Her work on quantum computing could revolutionize our cybersecurity division." "Good. We need to get face time with her after the presentation." Nathan leaned forward, his knee accidentally brushing against hers. Neither of them moved away immediately. "What else?" "I've identified 3 potential partnership opportunities." Elena pulled up profiles on her tablet. "Particularly interesting is Phoenix Dynamics. They're developing AI protocols that could complement our latest project." Nathan's eyes lit up with interest. "Show me." As Elena walked him through her analysis, she felt a surge of confidence. This was her element: facts, figures, strategies. But when she looked up from her tablet, she found Nathan watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with business. "You never cease to amaze me, Elena," he said softly. The use of her first name sent a shiver down her spine. A knock at the door broke the moment. Room service arrived with coffee and breakfast. Nathan must have ordered it earlier. They ate while continuing their discussion, but something had shifted in the atmosphere. Every shared glance felt weighted with meaning. The conference center buzzed with energy. Tech industry leaders from around the world filled the massive space, their conversations creating a constant hum of excitement. Elena felt eyes on them as they moved through the crowd. Nathan Turner's presence always drew attention, and now she was clearly part of his inner circle. During Dr. Reeves's keynote, Elena found herself stealing glances at Nathan. He sat beside her in the darkened auditorium, his focus intense as he took notes. Once he leaned close to whisper an observation in her ear, his breath warm against her skin, and she nearly forgot to breathe. The day progressed with a series of meetings and presentations. Elena watched Nathan in his element, commanding rooms, steering conversations, building alliances with an expertise that bordered on art. But she noticed something else too. He kept her close, introducing her as his right hand rather than a junior analyst, seeking her opinion in crucial moments. "You're a natural at this," he commented during a brief break between sessions. They stood at a window overlooking the Chicago River, coffee cups in hand. "The way you handled the questions about our AI integration plans, impressive." "I learned from watching you," Elena replied, then added with a slight smile, "though I'm less intimidating." "Don't be so sure about that." His voice held a note of amusement. "You have your own way of commanding attention." The comment hung between them, loaded with implications. Before Elena could respond, they were approached by Lawrence Chen, CEO of a rival tech firm. "Nathan Turner," Lawrence called out, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "And who is this lovely young woman?" "Elena Kim," Nathan replied, his tone cooling noticeably. "My executive analyst." Lawrence's eyebrows rose. "Executive analyst? Moving up quickly in the world, aren't we?" "Ms. Kim's capabilities speak for themselves," Nathan said firmly. His hand found the small of Elena's back. a gesture both protective and possessive. "If you'll excuse us, we have another meeting." As they walked away, Elena felt the warmth of his hand lingering on her. "Bish, executive analyst," she questioned quietly. "A promotion you've more than earned," Nathan replied. "We'll make it official when we return to New York." The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of networking and strategy sessions. By evening, Elena's feet ached in her heels, but her mind was buzzing with possibilities, both professional and personal. "Dinner in an hour," Nathan said as they rode the elevator back to their floor. "There's a restaurant on the roof. Wear something nice." Elena's heart skipped. "Is this a business dinner?" Nathan looked at her for a long moment, his eyes dark with unspoken thoughts. "Does it matter?" The elevator doors opened before she could respond. They walked to their respective rooms in charged silence, but just before entering hers, Elena turned to find Nathan watching her. "1 hour," he reminded her softly. In her suite, Elena stood before her closet, heart pounding. She had packed a black cocktail dress, simple but elegant, with a neckline that suggested rather than revealed. As she slipped it on, she couldn't ignore the voice in her head warning her that this dinner felt like crossing a line. But as she applied her lipstick and checked her reflection one final time, Elena realized something. Some lines were meant to be crossed. The question was, were they both ready for what lay on the other side? In his suite, Nathan loosened his tie, his thoughts filled with the way Elena had commanded respect throughout the day, the grace with which she had handled every challenge. He told himself this dinner was about celebrating a successful first day, about discussing strategy for tomorrow. But as he changed into a fresh shirt, he knew he was lying to himself. This dinner had nothing to do with business, and everything to do with the way Elena Kim had begun to occupy his thoughts in ways that both thrilled and terrified him. In exactly 1 hour, they would both discover just how dangerous mixing business with pleasure could be. The rooftop restaurant of the peninsula glittered like a jewel box suspended above Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the illuminated cityscape, while subtle lighting created intimate pools of warmth throughout the space. Elena stepped off the elevator, her black dress moving softly with each step, and immediately spotted Nathan waiting at the bar. He turned as if sensing her presence and, for a moment, simply stared. The crisp white of his dress shirt contrasted with his tanned skin, and he'd changed into a darker suit that fit him impeccably. But it was his expression that caught her. Breath, a look of pure appreciation that had nothing to do with professional respect. "Elena," he said softly, reaching for her hand to help her onto the bar stool beside him. "You look stunning." The compliment hung in the air between them, far more personal than any of their previous interactions. "Thank you," she replied, accepting the glass of wine he'd already ordered for her. Cabernet Sauvignon. He'd noticed her preference during previous corporate events. "I took the liberty of arranging a private table," Nathan said, his hand finding the small of her back again as he guided her through the restaurant. They were led to a corner table partially screened by elegant dividers, offering both a spectacular view and welcome privacy. "This is beautiful," Elena murmured, taking in the glittering cityscape below. "Chicago looks like a different world from up here. Sometimes we need a different perspective." Nathan's voice carried a weight that suggested he wasn't just talking about the view. "Being away from New York, from Hamilton Corp, it changes things, doesn't it?" Elena met his gaze across the table, feeling the shift in the air between them. "Does it?" Before he could respond, their sommelier appeared with a bottle of wine, followed by their first course. The interruption should have broken the tension, but instead, it seemed to heighten it. Every shared glance, every accidental brush of hands, as they reached for their glasses, felt charged with meaning. "Tell me something," Nathan said as they began their main course. "Why Hamilton Corp? You could have gone anywhere with your qualifications." Elena considered her answer carefully. "I wanted to be somewhere that could change the world. But more than that," she paused, taking a sip of wine. "I wanted to be somewhere I could prove myself based on merit alone, And have you? Proven yourself? I thought I had. She met his eyes. Until recently. Nathan set down his fork. What changed? You tell me, Elena challenged softly. Why am I really here in Chicago, Nathan? The use of his first name, the first time she'd ever said it, seemed to electrify the air between them. Nathan leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. Because you see things others miss. Because you're brilliant at what you do, because... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Because I can't seem to focus when you're not in the room, he admitted, the words coming out in a rush. Because every meeting feels incomplete without your insights. Because you've become essential, Elena, and not just a Hamilton Corp. The confession hung between them, impossible to take back. Elena felt her heart thundering in her chest. This is dangerous territory, she whispered. I know. Nathan's hand found hers across the table. But I think we passed dangerous a long time ago. The touch of his fingers against hers sent electricity through her body. Outside, Chicago's lights twinkled like stars fallen to earth, while inside, the restaurant's soft music and intimate lighting created a bubble where only they existed. Dance with me, Nathan said suddenly, standing and offering his hand. A small area near the bar had been cleared for dancing, where a few other couples swayed to the jazz quartet's gentle melody. Elena hesitated for only a moment before placing her hand in his. As they moved to the dance floor, she felt the eyes of other diners on them. But for once, she didn't care. Nathan drew her close. Not inappropriately so, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body, smell the subtle notes of his cologne. This definitely isn't in the corporate handbook, she murmured as they began to move to the music. Nathan's laugh was low and warm against her ear. I wrote the handbook, Elena. Sometimes rules need to be broken. They danced in silence for a while, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. Elena was acutely aware of his hand on her waist, the subtle strength in his shoulders under her fingers, the way his breath stirred her hair. What are we doing, Nathan? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He pulled back slightly to look at her, his eyes dark with emotion. I'm not sure, he admitted, but I know I don't want to stop. The music shifted to something slower, more intimate. Other couples had left the dance floor, leaving them alone in their private world. Elena felt herself being drawn closer until her head rested naturally against Nathan's chest. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady but slightly faster than normal. We should probably head back, she said softly, though she made no move to pull away. Tomorrow's schedule starts early. One more dance, Nathan murmured, his fingers tracing small circles on her back. The touch, even through the fabric of her dress, sent shivers down her spine. As they swayed together, Elena closed her eyes, allowing herself to exist purely in this moment. Tomorrow they would have to face reality. The conference, Hamilton Corp., the complicated web of professional relationships they were potentially destroying. But tonight, in this suspended moment of time, none of that seemed to matter. When the song ended, they reluctantly separated. Nathan's hands lingered on her waist for a moment longer than necessary, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. The elevator ride back to their floor was silent, charged with unspoken words and suppressed desires. They walked down the hallway together, footsteps muffled by thick carpet, until they reached their respective doors. Elena, Nathan said softly, turning to face her. The hallway was deserted, the only sound the distant hum of the building's systems. He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. This is where we say, good night, she whispered, though her body betrayed her words by swaying slightly toward him. Is it? His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing softly across her skin. Elena's eyes fluttered closed at the touch, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. For a moment that felt like eternity, they stood, frozen in that position, on the knife's edge between propriety and passion. Then, with a gentle exhale that might have been resignation or resolve, Nathan leaned down and pressed his lips to her forehead. A kiss that somehow felt more intimate than if he'd claimed her mouth. "Good night, Elena," he murmured against her skin before stepping back. His eyes held promises of things yet to come, things that made her pulse race and her mind spin with possibilities. Inside her suite, Elena leaned against the closed door, her entire body humming with unreleased tension. On the other side of the hall, she heard Nathan's door open and close and imagined him standing there, perhaps as affected by their evening as she was. As she got ready for bed, Elena caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with emotion. She looked like a woman on the verge of something life-changing, something that could either elevate her to new heights or shatter everything she'd worked for. The question was she ready to find out which? Morning arrived with uncomfortable clarity. Elena stood under the shower's hot spray, trying to clear her head of memories from the previous night. Nathan's touch during their dance, the warmth of his lips on her forehead, the way his eyes had burned with unspoken desires. She had barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities and consequences. Her phone buzzed just as she finished dressing in a navy business suit. A text from Nathan. "Breakfast meeting in my suite, 30 minutes. Elena's stomach fluttered. How would they navigate this morning after everything that had passed between them? She took extra care with her appearance, though she told herself it was for the conference presentations, not for him. When she knocked on his door exactly 30 minutes later, Nathan answered, looking impeccably put together in a charcoal suit, but the shadows under his eyes suggested she wasn't the only one who'd had a restless night. "Come in," he said, his voice carrying a hint of gruffness. "Coffee's ready." His suite was larger than hers, with a separate dining area where breakfast had been laid out. The table was covered with conference materials and the morning's financial papers, a clear attempt to maintain professional boundaries. "About last night," Nathan began, then stopped as his phone buzzed. His expression darkened as he read the message. "Damn. What is it?" "Lawrence Chen. He's planning to announce a quantum computing breakthrough at today's afternoon session." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "If it's what I think it is, it could undermine our entire development timeline." Elena's analyst mind kicked in immediately, pushing personal matters aside. "The project Dr. Reeves mentioned yesterday?" "Exactly. Lawrence must have been watching our reaction during her presentation." Nathan began pacing, his breakfast untouched. He's always been opportunistic, but this is aggressive even for him. "Let me see the conference schedule," Elena said, pulling out her tablet. She scanned through the day's events, her mind racing. "There's a tech demonstration slot right before his announcement. It's still open." Nathan stopped pacing, turning to look at her. "What are you thinking?" "We have the prototype for Project Aurora. It's not complete, but the neural interface capabilities are revolutionary." Elena met his gaze. "If we can secure that slot, demonstrate even a fraction of what Aurora can do, we could steal his thunder," Nathan finished, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Elena, you're brilliant." He moved toward her quickly, as if to embrace her, then caught himself. The moment hung between them, charged with the memory of last night's almost kiss. Elena cleared her throat. "I'll need to call New York, get the demo files transferred securely." "Do it." Nathan nodded, professional mode engaging despite the electricity still crackling between them. "I'll work my connections to get us that demonstration slot." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Elena coordinated with the Hamilton Corp tech team in New York, while Nathan worked the conference organizers. They barely had time to think about their personal situation, though every accidental touch as they worked side by side sent sparks through Elena's body. By mid-morning, they had secured the slot. Elena was reviewing the demonstration materials when a familiar voice made her blood run cold. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Lawrence Chen stood in the doorway of their private conference room, his smile predatory. "Working so closely with the boss, Ms. Kim?" I'm sure that has nothing to do with your rapid promotion to executive analyst. Elena felt Nathan stiffen beside her. Your insinuations are both inappropriate and incorrect, Lawrence, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Oh, please. Lawrence's eyes gleamed with malice. I saw you two at dinner last night. The dancing, the intimate conversation. Quite a show. I wonder what the board would think. What your father would say, Nathan. Elena's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. Mr. Chen, if you're trying to intimidate us, not at all, my dear. Just making an observation. He straightened his tie. Good luck with your demonstration today. I hope it's worth whatever arrangements you've made to advance your career. Before either of them could respond, he was gone, leaving behind a heavy silence. He's trying to throw us off our game, Nathan said finally, his hands clenched into fists. Elena, what happened between us? Don't. Elena held up a hand. We can't do this now. The demonstration is in 3 hours and we need to be perfect. Nathan looked like he wanted to say more but nodded. They threw themselves into preparation, though the tension between them had taken on a new edge. Part desire, part fear, part determination to prove Lawrence Chen wrong. The demonstration room filled quickly. Elena spotted several board members, from rival companies, tech journalists, and her stomach dropped, Robert Turner himself watching from the back row. He must have flown in specifically for this. Ready? Nathan murmured as they prepared to take the stage. Elena met his eyes. Always. Their presentation was flawless. Elena handled the technical demonstration while Nathan explained the broader implications for the industry. The neural interface prototype responded perfectly, drawing gasps from the audience as it translated thought patterns into complex computer commands in real time. When they finished, the applause was thunderous. Elena caught Lawrence Chen's sour expression as he slipped out of the room. His own announcement would seem pedestrian in comparison. Exceptional work, Robert Turner said afterward, approaching them. His eyes moved between Nathan and Elena, calculating. Though I'm curious about the timing of this impromptu demonstration. Sometimes opportunities present themselves, Father. Nathan replied coolly. Elena's quick thinking made it possible. Robert's gaze settled on Elena, sharp and assessing. Yes, I'm sure she's become quite invaluable to you. The implication in his tone made Elena's cheeks burn, but she held his gaze steadily. After a long moment, Robert turned and walked away, leaving behind an atmosphere heavy with unspoken warnings. Hours later, Elena stood at her hotel room window, watching the city lights blur through her unshed tears. The day had been a professional triumph, but at what cost? The rumors Lawrence Chen would surely spread, Robert Turner's suspicious gaze, the weight of speculation about her relationship with Nathan, it was all becoming too real. A soft knock at her door made her heart leap. She knew who it was without checking. Nathan stood there, his tie loosened, his eyes intense. Can I come in? Elena hesitated only a moment before stepping back to let him enter. As the door closed behind him, they both knew there would be no going back from what happened next. The city lights twinkled below, bearing witness to a moment that would change everything. The silence in Elena's hotel room felt alive with possibility. Nathan stood just inside the door, his presence filling the space in a way that made the luxurious suite feel suddenly small. Neither of them spoke for a long moment, the city lights casting shifting shadows across their faces. We should talk about today, Nathan finally said, though his eyes suggested talking was the last thing on his mind. Which part? Elena asked softly. The presentation? Lawrence Chen's threats? Your father's surprise appearance? All of it. Nathan moved closer, close enough that Elena could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed at his sides, as if fighting the urge to reach for her. None of it. Nathan, I keep telling myself this is wrong, he interrupted, his voice low and intense. That I'm your boss, that there are 1,000 reasons we shouldn't cross this line. But Elena. He reached up, his fingers ghosting along her cheek. I can't remember any of those reasons when I'm with you. Elena's heart thundered in her chest. Try harder, she whispered even as she leaned into his touch. Think about Hamilton Corp, about your father, about everything we could lose. I'm tired of thinking. Nathan's other hand found her waist, drawing her closer. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this, aren't you? Instead of answering, Elena lifted her face to his. The kiss, when it finally came, was neither hesitant nor rushed. Nathan's lips met hers with a certainty that made her knees weak, his touch simultaneously gentle and possessive. Elena's hand slid up his chest to his shoulders, feeling the solid strength of him beneath her fingers. The kiss deepened, months of suppressed desire flooding to the surface. Nathan backed her slowly toward the window, until she felt the cool glass against her shoulders. The contrast of temperatures, the window's chill and Nathan's warmth, sent shivers down her spine. You're trembling, Nathan murmured against her lips. I'm scared, Elena admitted, her hands fisting in his shirt. This changes everything. It already has. He pulled back slightly to look at her, his eyes dark with emotion. The moment you walked into that board meeting and showed everyone exactly how brilliant you are, everything changed. I just didn't want to admit it. Elena closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. What happens now? Now? Nathan's thumb traced her lower lip. Now we stop pretending this isn't exactly where we were always heading. He kissed her again, and Elena lost herself in the sensation. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss while her own fingers worked at his tie, needing to feel more of him. The sharp ring of a phone shattered the moment. Nathan pulled back with a curse, reaching for his pocket. His expression darkened as he checked the screen. It's my father. Reality came crashing back. Elena stepped away from Nathan, wrapping her arms around herself as he answered the call. Father. Nathan's voice was clipped. It's late. Yes, I saw the preliminary numbers. No, that wasn't the only reason for the demonstration. His eyes met Elena's as he listened. I make my own decisions about staffing. This isn't a conversation I'm having right now. He ended the call with more force than necessary, running a hand through his hair in frustration. He's demanding a video conference with the board tomorrow morning. He wants to discuss the hasty demonstration and its impact on company strategy. He knows, Elena said quietly, about us. Lawrence Chen must have. There is no us as far as the board is concerned, Nathan cut in, his tone sharp. Then, seeing her expression, he softened. Elena, I didn't mean. No, you're right. She moved away from the window, needing physical distance to think clearly. This was a mistake. We got caught up in the moment in the success of the presentation, but don't. Nathan crossed the room in 2 strides, catching her arm. Don't do that. Don't diminish what just happened between us. Then what do you suggest? Elena challenged, pulling free. Should we announce to the board that their president is involved with a junior analyst? Watch your father's carefully built corporate empire implode because we couldn't control ourselves? You're not just some junior analyst and you know it. Nathan's voice was fierce. You're the most brilliant person in that company, and today proved it. The board saw what you can do. My father saw it too, whether he wants to admit it or not. And you? Elena asked softly. What do you see? Nathan's expression softened. I see the woman I can't stop thinking about. The woman who challenges me, surprises me, makes me want things I never thought I needed. He stepped closer again, his presence magnetic. The woman I'm falling in love with, corporate politics be damned. The words hung in the air between them, impossible to take back. Elena felt tears prick at her eyes. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because it makes this more complicated? It already is complicated, Elena. His hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. But some things are worth fighting for. A single tear escaped, rolling down Elena's cheek. Nathan caught it with his thumb, the gesture unbearably tender. "We have to be smart about this," she whispered. "We will be." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But I'm not giving you up. Not for my father, not for the board, not for anyone." The city continued to pulse with life beyond the window, unaware of the seismic shift occurring in room 2214 of the Peninsula Chicago. Elena knew they should stop this now before it went any further. But as Nathan's lips found hers again, she realized some things were inevitable, like gravity, like dawn, like the way her heart had been moving toward his since the moment they met. Tomorrow would bring consequences. There would be meetings to face, explanations to give, battles to fight. But tonight, in this room high above Chicago, Elena allowed herself to believe that Nathan was right, that some things were worth any price. His kisses grew more urgent, and Elena responded in kind, pouring months of longing into each touch. They were crossing a line that could never be uncrossed, but as Nathan's hands traced paths of fire across her skin, she couldn't bring herself to care. The world outside could wait. Tonight belonged to them. Dawn crept into Elena's suite, painting the room in shades of gold and rose. She stood at the window, wrapped in a hotel robe, watching the city come alive below. Behind her, she heard Nathan stirring in the bed they'd shared, and her heart clenched with a mixture of joy and terror. "You're thinking too loud." Nathan's voice was rough with sleep. She turned to find him watching her, his dark hair tousled, his eyes soft in a way she'd never seen before. "The board meeting is in 2 hours," she said quietly. "Come here." He held out his hand, and despite her better judgment, Elena found herself moving toward him. As soon as she was within reach, he pulled her down beside him, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Whatever happens in that meeting, we face it together." "Nathan," Elena began, but was interrupted by an urgent knock at the door. They froze, exchanging alarmed glances. The knock came again, followed by a familiar voice. "Elena, it's Madison. We need to talk, now." "Madison?" Elena whispered, panic rising in her chest. "She's supposed to be in New York." Nathan was already moving, gathering his clothes silently. Elena threw on her clothes from the previous day, her hands shaking as she tried to button her blouse. "Elena, I know you're in there," Madison called. "Lawrence Chen is all over social media with hints about last night's corporate scandal. The New York office is buzzing." "Just a minute," Elena called, her voice remarkably steady despite her racing heart. Nathan had disappeared into the bathroom, and Elena quickly smoothed the bed before opening the door. Madison Chen burst in, her expression a mixture of concern and exasperation. "Please tell me you didn't—" She stopped, spotting Nathan's tie on the floor where it had fallen the night before. "Oh, Elena." "It's not what you think," Elena began automatically, then caught herself. "Actually, it's exactly what you think, and I don't regret it." "The board meeting starts in 2 hours, Madison hissed. "Robert Turner flew in half the executive team last night. This isn't just about the demonstration anymore." As if on cue, the bathroom door opened, and Nathan emerged, impeccably dressed despite the circumstances. Madison's eyes widened, but to her credit, she didn't flinch. "Mr. Turner," she said professionally, "I suppose I should have expected this." "Miss Chen." Nathan's voice was calm, controlled. "I trust your discretion in this matter." "Of course." Madison's expression softened as she looked between them. "But you both need to know what you're walking into. Lawrence Chen has been strategically dropping hints all morning about inappropriate relationships at Hamilton Corp. The tech blogs are already speculating. And Robert Turner—" She hesitated. "What about my father?" Nathan's tone sharpened. "He's called in Julia Richardson from legal." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Julia Richardson was Hamilton Corp's specialist in corporate ethics and liability. Her presence meant this wasn't just about rumors anymore. This was about protecting the company. Nathan's phone buzzed with an incoming text. His jaw tightened as he read it. "They've moved the meeting up. 30 minutes. "I'll go first," Madison said quickly. give you both some cover to arrive separately. But Elena, she gripped her friend's hand. Be careful. They're out for blood. After Madison left, Elena moved to get her briefcase, but Nathan caught her arm, pulling her into a fierce embrace. Remember what I said last night, he murmured into her hair. Some things are worth fighting for. Even if it costs you everything, you're worth everything. They separated reluctantly, knowing they needed to maintain appearances. Elena went first, taking a different elevator down to the conference level. Her heart pounded with each step toward the meeting room, where she could already see people gathering through the glass walls. The room fell silent as she entered. Lawrence Chen sat near the head of the table, a satisfied smirk playing at his lips. Robert Turner stood at the window, his back rigid with tension. Various board members and executives filled the other seats, their expressions ranging from curiosity to judgment. Nathan arrived exactly 5 minutes later, every inch the corporate president in his fresh suit and perfect composure. Only Elena could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. Let's begin, Robert Turner said, turning from the window. We're here to discuss yesterday's unauthorized demonstration of Project Aurora and the concerning behaviors that have come to light. If you're referring to the technological breakthrough that put us light years ahead of our competitors, Nathan's voice was ice cold. I'd say that deserves celebration, not censure. Don't play naive, Nathan, Lawrence Chen interjected smoothly. We all saw your celebration last night. Quite intimate for a professional relationship, wouldn't you say? Elena kept her face carefully blank, even as she felt the weight of every stare in the room. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her crack. Ms. Kim, Julia Richardson spoke up, her tone precise and clinical. Are you aware of Hamilton Corp's policies regarding relationships between management and subordinates? Before Elena could respond, Nathan cut in. If we're discussing company policies, let's discuss the policy against corporate espionage, Lawrence. How long have you been following my executives around, taking photos, gathering ammunition? That's enough. Robert Turner's voice cracked like a whip. This isn't about Lawrence Chen. This is about you, Nathan, and your inability to separate personal desires from professional judgment. My professional judgment? Nathan laughed darkly. The woman you're all so eager to condemn just saved this company millions with that demonstration. She's the most valuable asset Hamilton Corp has, and instead of recognizing that, you're all obsessed with who she might be sleeping with? Nathan! Robert's face flushed with anger. No, Father. You wanted to have this conversation, so let's have it. Nathan stood, his presence commanding the room. Elena Kim is brilliant, dedicated, and more qualified than half the people in this room. If anyone suggests her success comes from anything other than her own merit, they'll answer to me. And that, Robert said quietly, is precisely the problem. Your judgment is compromised. Then maybe it's time for new judgment. Nathan's words fell like bombs in the silent room. Maybe it's time for Hamilton Corp to stop operating on outdated principles and personal prejudices. Nathan, Elena, finally spoke, her voice soft but clear. Don't. He turned to look at her, and in that moment their connection was painfully obvious to everyone watching. Elena, I quit. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Elena stood, gathering her materials with steady hands. My resignation will be on your desk within the hour, Mr. Turner. I trust that will resolve any ethical concerns. She walked out of the room with her head high, even as her heart broke with each step. Behind her she heard chairs scraping, voices raised, but she didn't look back. She made it to the elevator before the tears started falling. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of Nathan bursting from the conference room, his face a mask of anguish. But the elevator was already descending, taking her away from everything she'd worked for, everything she'd come to love. Sometimes, she realized, the only way to win was to walk away first. The Chicago rain matched Nathan's mood perfectly. Dark, relentless, angry. He stood in his hotel suite, watching water stream down the windows while the board meeting's aftermath played, on repeat in his mind. Elena's resignation had thrown the room into chaos. His father had attempted damage control. Lawrence Chen had looked insufferably pleased, and the board members had dissolved into heated discussions about company stability and public relations. Nathan had walked out on all of them. "She's gone, sir," his assistant reported through the phone. "Ms. Kim checked out 30 minutes ago. She left this for you." A soft chime indicated an incoming email. Nathan opened it with trembling fingers. "Dear Mr. Turner, please accept my formal resignation from Hamilton Corp., effective immediately. I appreciate the opportunities for growth and development that the company has provided. Regards, Elena." Kim's the formal tone, the Mr. Turner, the complete absence of emotion. It was all so perfectly, professionally empty that Nathan felt physically ill. He hurled his phone across the room, watching it bounce harmlessly off a plush chair. A knock at his door made him turn sharply. "Nathan," his father's voice, "we need to discuss damage control." "Go away. Don't be childish. This is bigger than your infatuation. The press is already asking questions. Lawrence Chen made sure of that." Nathan yanked the door open, fury radiating from every pore. "Infatuation? Is that what you think this is?" Robert Turner stood in the hallway, his expression grave. "What I think is that you've allowed yourself to be distracted from what matters. Hamilton Corp." "Elena matters," Nathan cut in, his voice deadly quiet. "Her brilliance, her integrity, her dedication to this company, all of it matters. But you couldn't see past your own prejudices long enough to recognize that. She was an employee, Nathan, a junior analyst who saved us from a disastrous merger, who revolutionized our project management systems, who just demonstrated technology that put us years ahead of our competitors." Nathan's laugh was bitter. "But none of that matters because she dared to be more than just an employee to me, right?" Robert's face hardened. "You're the president of this company. Everything you do reflects on Hamilton Corp. Your personal choices." "My personal choices?" Nathan stepped closer to his father. "Like your personal choice to go behind my back and threaten her. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" A flicker of surprise crossed Robert's face before he could mask it. "Madison Chen told me everything," Nathan continued, his voice shaking with rage. "How you called Elena into your office before Chicago, how you tried to intimidate her into staying away from me, how you implied she was nothing but a temporary distraction. I was protecting you, protecting the company. You were protecting your own outdated vision of what this company should be, and now you've lost us the most valuable employee we've had in decades." "She's replaceable," Robert said dismissively. Nathan stared at his father for a long moment. "No, she's not. But you know what is? Me." Robert's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if Elena Kim doesn't have a place at Hamilton Corp., maybe I don't either." "You can't. Be serious. This company is your legacy." "It's your legacy, Father. It's always been about what you wanted." Nathan turned away, running a hand through his hair. "I've spent my entire life trying to be the son you wanted, the president you groomed me to be, but for what? So I could turn into you? Alone, suspicious, unable to recognize real value when it's right in front of you? Nathan, get out." When Robert didn't move, Nathan's voice rose. "Get out." After his father left, Nathan stood, in the silence of his suite, his mind racing. Elena was gone, really gone, and it was his fault. He had promised to protect her, to fight for them, and he had failed spectacularly. His phone buzzed from where it had landed. A text from Madison. "She's headed to the airport, United Airlines Terminal 1. Nathan moved without thinking, grabbing his coat and room key. The elevator seemed to crawl downward, each second an eternity when Elena was slipping further away. In the lobby, he nearly collided with Lawrence Chen. "Leaving so soon, Nathan? The conference isn't over." Nathan grabbed Lawrence by his expensive lapels, shoving him against the wall. "If you ever come near my company or Elena Kim again, I will bury you. Do you understand?" He didn't wait for a response, releasing Lawrence and striding through the lobby. The rain hammered down as he jumped into the first available taxi. O'Hare Airport, Terminal 1, as fast as you can. The drive seemed endless. Nathan's thoughts raced faster than the taxi, remembering every moment with Elena, her quiet confidence in that first board meeting, her brilliant mind during project discussions, her smile when she thought no one was watching, the way she felt in his arms last night like she was always meant to be there. His phone buzzed again. Madison. Her flight's delayed due to weather. Gate B6, hurry. The airport was chaos, filled with stranded travelers. Nathan ran through security thanks to his priority status, his heart pounding as he searched for Gate B6. And then he saw her. Elena sat alone by the window watching planes taxi through the rain. She looked small, vulnerable, nothing like the confident woman who had walked out of that board meeting. Even from a distance, Nathan could see the tears on her cheeks. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. The last time I let someone walk away from me without fighting for them, I regretted it for years. Elena stiffened but didn't turn. This isn't about fighting, Nathan. This is about reality. Reality. He moved to stand in front of her. Reality is that I love you. Reality is that you're the best thing that's ever happened to Hamilton Corp and to me. Reality is that I'm not letting you go without a fight. Your father doesn't control me anymore. Nathan knelt before her chair, forcing her to meet his eyes. I just threatened to resign. Told him if you don't have a place at Hamilton Corp, neither do I. Elena's eyes widened in horror. You didn't. I did, and I meant it. He took her hands in his, not caring who saw. I've spent my whole life trying to be what everyone else wanted. The perfect son, the perfect president, the perfect leader. But with you, I just get to be me. And that's worth everything. Nathan, you can't throw away your whole life for love? He smiled softly. Watch me. New tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. What happened to being smart about this? Smart is overrated. He reached up to wipe away her tears. Come back with me. Not to resign, but to fight. We'll face the board together. We'll change the company together. No more hiding. No more compromising who we are or what we feel. And if we fail, then we fail together. He squeezed her hands. But Elena, look what we've already done. That demonstration proved what you're capable of. The board saw it, the industry saw it, even my father saw it. They're not just going to let you walk away, and neither am I. The airport speakers crackled. Final boarding call for United Airlines Flight 2847 to New York. Elena looked at her boarding pass, then back at Nathan. In his eyes, she saw everything she'd ever wanted. Love, respect, partnership, the chance to make a real difference. Together? She whispered. Nathan's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. Together. He helped her up, and they watched through the window as her plane took off without her, disappearing into the stormy Chicago sky. But Elena wasn't watching the plane. She was watching Nathan's reflection in the glass, seeing the man who had chosen love over legacy, truth over tradition. The rain continued to fall outside, but in that moment, all Elena could feel was light. The Hamilton Corp boardroom felt different this time. Elena sat beside Nathan at the head of the table, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the faces of board members as they filed in. Some curious, some hostile, all watching intently as their president sat hand in hand with the woman who had resigned barely 24 hours ago. Robert Turner entered last, his face a mask of carefully controlled anger. I see you've made your choice, he said to Nathan. I made my choice a long time ago, Father. Nathan's voice was calm, but firm. I just didn't have the courage to admit it until now. Madison Chen slipped into the room, taking a seat near Elena. Her slight nod conveyed both support and warning. The media was already buzzing with speculation about yesterday's events. Before we begin, Elena spoke up, her voice clear and steady. I'd like to withdraw my resignation. That's not your decision to make, Robert began, but Nathan cut him off. Actually, It is. As president of Hamilton Corp, I'm refusing to accept her resignation. Nathan stood, commanding the room's attention. Furthermore, I'm proposing a restructuring of our executive team. Elena Kim will be appointed as Chief Innovation Officer, reporting directly to the board. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. The position was new, created specifically to bypass the usual chain of command, and to place Elena beyond Robert's direct influence. This is unprecedented, one of the board members protested. Ms. Kim, while talented, doesn't have the experience. Doesn't she? Nathan pressed a button, and the room's screens came to life. Project Aurora's demonstration caused our stock to jump 12 points yesterday. 3 major tech publications are calling it a paradigm shift in neural interface technology. And this morning, Phoenix Dynamics reached out about a potential partnership worth billions. He paused, letting the information sink in. All of this stemmed from Elena's insights and leadership. Leadership isn't just about technical skills, Robert interjected. It's about judgment. And recent events have called Ms. Kim's judgment into serious question. Elena felt Nathan tense beside her, but she squeezed his hand and stood. You're right, Mr. Turner. Judgment is crucial. So let's talk about judgment. She moved to the front of the room, pulling up new data on the screens. 6 months ago, I identified critical flaws in the Anderson merger, flaws that would have cost this company millions. 3 months ago, I restructured our project management systems, increasing efficiency by 40%. And 2 days ago, I helped position Hamilton Corp at the forefront of neural interface technology. She turned to face Robert directly. My judgment told me these things were important. My judgment also told me that falling in love with your son wasn't a mistake. It was the most real thing I've ever known. If that calls my professional capabilities into question, then perhaps we need to reevaluate what truly matters to this company. The room fell silent. Even Robert seemed taken aback by her directness. I've reviewed the company bylaws, Nathan added into the silence. There's no explicit policy against relationships between executives, provided they're disclosed, and proper oversight is maintained. Elena's new position would report to the board, not to me, eliminating any conflict of interest. And what about public perception? Another board member asked. Lawrence Chen is currently facing an ethics investigation. For corporate espionage, Madison interrupted, sliding folders across the table. My team has documented evidence of him following and photographing Hamilton Corp executives without consent. His credibility is shot. Elena caught Madison's eye, silently thanking her friend for the strategic backup. This was why they had spent all night preparing. Every objection anticipated, every angle covered. The real question, Nathan continued, is what kind of company we want Hamilton Corp to be. One that clings to outdated hierarchies and personal prejudices, or one that recognizes and rewards talent that isn't afraid to evolve? He moved to stand beside Elena, their unity obvious to everyone. I love this woman. I won't apologize for that or hide it. But more importantly, I respect her brilliance, her integrity, and her vision for this company's future. If the board can't see the value in that, then perhaps it's time for new leadership altogether. Robert Turner's face had grown increasingly red during his son's speech. Are you threatening to resign if you don't get your way? No, Father. I'm promising to fight for what's right. Something you taught me, although perhaps not in the way you intended. The tension in the room was palpable as father and son stared each other down. Finally, one of the senior board members cleared his throat. I move to create the position of Chief Innovation Officer, he said formally, and to appoint Elena Kim to the role effective immediately. Seconded, another voice called out. Robert Turner looked around the table, seeing support building for his son's proposal. His expression shifted from anger to something more complex, perhaps recognition that the company he'd built was changing, evolving beyond his control. All in favor? Nathan asked, his voice steady. Hands rose around the table, a clear majority. Elena felt tears prick at her eyes but blinked them back. This wasn't the time for emotion. This was the time for strength. Motion carried. Nathan declared. Ms. Kim, welcome to the executive team. As the board members filed out, some stopping to congratulate her, Elena felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. She had won her place, but the real work was just beginning. Robert Turner was the last to leave, pausing at the door. You've changed him, he said to Elena, his voice low. I'm not sure if that's good or bad yet. He changed himself, Elena replied quietly. I just helped him find the courage to be who he really is. Robert studied her for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Not acceptance exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. When they were finally alone, Nathan pulled Elena into his arms. You were magnificent, he murmured into her hair. We were magnificent, she corrected, looking up at him. Together. Together, he agreed, kissing her softly. Although I have to warn you, being Chief Innovation Officer means you'll have to attend a lot of boring executive dinners. Elena laughed, the sound bright with relief and joy. As long as you're there to dance with me afterward. Outside the boardroom, Hamilton Corp hummed with activity, already adjusting to the morning's changes. But inside, for just a moment, there was only this: two people who had chosen love over fear, truth over convenience, and each other over everything else. The hard part wasn't over. It was just beginning. But as Elena looked into Nathan's eyes, she knew they would face whatever came next, the same way they had faced this challenge. Together. 6 months later, Elena stood in the same spot where everything had begun, the 52nd floor of our Hamilton Corp, watching dawn paint the Manhattan skyline. So much had changed since those early mornings when she'd arrived first, trying to be invisible while being indispensable. I thought I'd find you here. She turned to find Nathan watching her from the doorway, his tie loosened after what had undoubtedly been another late night. Project Aurora's success had thrust Hamilton Corp into a new era of innovation, and with it came endless meetings, presentations, and strategic decisions. Just remembering, Elena said softly as he joined her at the window. Did you finish the Phoenix Dynamics call? Signed and sealed. Nathan slipped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. The neural interface integration begins next month. Your team's already working on the protocols. Elena smiled, remembering how that partnership had begun in Chicago during a conference that had changed everything. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't spotted those flaws in their original proposal. You would have found another way to amaze me, Nathan murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck. You always do. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of professional triumphs and personal adjustments. Elena's appointment as Chief Innovation Officer had sent ripples through the tech industry, with many praising Hamilton Corp's progressive leadership, while others watched skeptically, waiting for her to fail. She hadn't failed. Instead, she had thrived, transforming the company's approach to research and development. Her teams worked at the cutting edge of technology, pushing boundaries that others thought impossible. The stock price had soared, and even the most skeptical board members had become ardent supporters. Your father called today, Elena said, feeling Nathan tense slightly behind her. He wants to have dinner next week. Robert Turner's evolution had been slower, more complicated. The weekly board meetings were still occasionally tense, but there was a growing respect in the way he treated Elena, not just as his son's partner, but as a valuable leader in her own right. Did you accept? I did. Elena turned in Nathan's arms to face him. He's trying, Nathan. That's more than we expected 6 months ago. Nathan's expression softened. You're more forgiving than I am. No, she corrected gently. I just understand what it's like to have your whole world shift beneath your feet, to realize that everything you thought you knew about love and success and what matters, it can all change in an instant. Like the moment your boss catches you working early and can't stop thinking about you, Nathan teased, though his eyes were serious. Like the moment you realize that being invisible isn't the same as being strong, Elena countered. Or the moment you understand that some risks are worth taking, even if they terrify you. Nathan pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. You never terrified me, challenged me, surprised me, made me question everything I thought I knew, but never terrified. Liar, Elena laughed softly. You were scared to death that night in Chicago. I was scared of losing you, he corrected. There's a difference. The memory of that night still had the power to take her breath away. The first kiss, the overwhelming feeling of finally giving in to what they'd both wanted for so long. Now, months later, that passion hadn't dimmed. It had deepened, matured into something more profound. Madison's planning an engagement party, Elena said casually, watching Nathan's face light up at the mention of their friend's recent happiness. She says we're responsible for making office romance respectable again. Is that what we did? Nathan's thumb traced the diamond ring on her left hand, a recent addition that still made Elena's heart skip when she caught sight of it. Among other things. She reached up to straighten his tie, a gesture that had become habit. We changed the company's policies on workplace relationships. We launched groundbreaking technology. We proved that love and success aren't mutually exclusive. We proved that being true to yourself is the only way to real success, Nathan corrected. Everything else followed from that. Outside, the sun had fully risen, another day beginning in the city that never slept. Soon, the office would fill with people, their people, the teams they led together, each pursuing their own dreams under the umbrella of what Hamilton Corp had become. I have a meeting with the development team in 20 minutes, Elena sighed, reluctant to leave this moment. I know. I'll be there. At her surprised look, Nathan smiled. What? I love watching you work. The way your mind moves, the way you inspire people to think bigger. It's still the most attractive thing I've ever seen. More attractive than me in that dress from the Chicago gala? Well, Nathan pretended to consider, laughing when Elena swatted his chest. Nothing compares to you in that dress. But your brilliance? That's what made me fall in love with you. Elena reached up to kiss him, soft and sweet. We should go. The team's waiting. One more minute, Nathan murmured against her lips. Some things are worth being late for. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the city sprawling below them, Elena thought about all the moments that had led them here. The early mornings when she'd tried so hard to be invisible. The stolen glances across conference rooms. The night in Chicago that had changed everything. The battles they'd fought. The victories they'd won. The love they'd built despite every obstacle. She thought about the future stretching out before them. Marriage, more challenges, more triumphs, more moments like this. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be board meetings to navigate, projects to launch, boundaries to push. But they would face it all together, just as they had promised that day in the airport. I love you, she whispered. Just because she could. Nathan's arms tightened around her. I love you too, always. The words echoed in the quiet morning air, a promise and a celebration all at once. They had found each other despite every rule and restriction. They had chosen love over fear, truth over convenience, partnership over power. And in doing so, they had created something revolutionary, not just in technology or business, but in the way two hearts could beat as one while still soaring independently. The 52nd floor of Hamilton Corp would always be where their story began. But as Elena and Nathan finally separated, heading toward their meeting hand in hand, she knew it wasn't where their story would end. This was just the beginning of their greatest innovation yet. A love that defied expectations, a partnership that transformed an industry, and a future bright with possibilities they would discover together. If you were Elena, would you have chosen love over your career at Hamilton Corp? Or would you have walked away to protect everything you'd worked for? What would you risk for a love that could cost you everything? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.